Good morning. I'd like to call our February 29th, 2024 Metro Council Business Meeting to order. Connor, will you please call the roll for attendance?
Yes, thank you, President Peterson. Councillor Simpson.
Good morning, President.
Good morning. Councillor Gonzalez.
Present. Morning.
Good morning. Councillor Lewis.
Present.
Councillor Rosenthal.
Present.
Councillor Nolan.
Yes, sir.
And Councillor Wong is excused today, and President Peterson.
Here, thank you. Connor, would you like to describe the interventive
Thanks.
emergency?
Yes, we have a safety video for that, so I'll just ask for that to be played now.
I'm Laura Lepley, a Metro Park Ranger. Here at Oxbow Park, safety is our #1 priority, not only for our guests, but for our staff members. I'm at the Welcome Center and you're at the Regional Center. The council chambers are located on the 3rd floor. In the event of a fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room. Go down the stairway to the 2nd floor, exit through the main entrance by the reception desk, and gather in the courtyard outside that entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the reception desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you, and come visit us at Oxbow Park.
Great. We will move on to public communications on non-agenda items. Connor, will you please describe to the audience our procedures for our public communication portion of the meeting?
Yes, thank you, President Peterson. So if anyone wishes to testify on non-agenda items, now is the time to do so. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes, and I'll manage a timer to go off the 3-minute mark. If you've not already signed up to speak, you can do so now. If you are joining us on Zoom, you can sign up by hitting the raise hand button, which depending on your version of Zoom is either at the bottom of your screen or within the reactions tab. For those joining us in person, you can fill out one of the blue cards in the back of the room and bring that up to me. And as a reminder to everybody for testifying today, you do not need to give your physical address. However, please do identify yourself for the record before testifying. So with that, President Peterson, councilors, we have not had anybody signed up in advance to speak today, nor have we had any written testimony submitted. So I'll just give our Zoom and physical audience another second or two to get their hands up if they would like to testify. All right, and seeing none, President Peterson.
Great, thank you. I will close the public communication portion of the meeting on non-agenda items and move into our consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of one item, 3.1, resolution number 24-5384 for the purpose of adding or amending 7 projects in the 2024 through 27 MTIP to meet federal transportation project delivery requirements. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Lewis and seconded by Councillor Rosenthal. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion passes. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to resolutions. We have, starting out with resolution number 24-5394 for the purpose of confirming the appointment of Chris Oxley to the Metropolitan Exposition Recreation Commission. Councilors, as you recall, at the end of December, Commissioner David Martinez moved to Palm Springs and stepped down from his position on the MERC. We are thankful, very grateful for his time and valuable contributions during his term as on MERC. To fill the vacancy, the City of Portland has nominated Chris Oxley to fill the remainder of the Commissioner Martinez's term. Marisa Madrigal, our Chief Operating Officer, is here to share more about the appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, President Peterson, and good morning, Council. Chris Oxley is the owner and principal of Adaptive Strategies, a consultant service company providing owner and executive level advisory services in sports, live events, and hospitality. Chris's expansive career in the sports and entertainment industry has spanned 3 decades, 24 of which were in Portland and the Pacific Northwest. He has significant experience in the environment where venues and live events intersect with communities and government. His advisory business now focuses on venue development, live events, business strategy, and complex problem solving. Chris is an established industry leader in sustainable venue operations, capital planning, and hospitality. I'm excited to have a candidate who brings so much experience with visitor venues to this region and appreciate the City of Portland's nomination. Today's resolution is seeking council approval of Chris Oxley to the Merck Commission.
Thank you. Counselors, any questions, comments? Well, I'd just like to say, having worked with Chris throughout the time at Metro, I think we have all seen his ability to work in partnership, and I think his experience will be very helpful as we move through a lot of transition in our venue space in the future. So who knows where we're going, but we've got a lot of excitement.
We sure do.
With that, counselors, is there a motion for resolution number 24-5394 for the purpose of confirming the appointment of Chris Oxley to the Metropolitan Exposition Recreation Commission?
So moved.
Thank you, Counselor Lewis. And
I'll
is there-
second.
Thank you, Counselor Gonzalez. Any further discussion on the resolution? All right, Connor, will you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Counselor Nolan,
Yes.
Counselor Rosenthal,
Yes.
Counselor Simpson,
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez,
Aye.
Counselor Lewis,
Aye.
and President Peterson.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is resolution number 24-5385 for the purpose of adopting Metro's Public Engagement Guide, and this is the phase 1. Metro's Public Engagement Guide was last adopted in 2013 and aims to provide information to the public and engagement planning guidance to staff to ensure people have meaningful opportunities to stay informed or be involved in Metro's work. Last June, Council adopted the guiding principles of meaningful public engagement, and in a work session last month, Council provided feedback to staff on the updates to the core document for Metro's Public Engagement Guide. Over the last few weeks, staff have incorporated feedback from Metro Council staff, community partners, and public review. Today, staff seeks adoption of this core document pending a design and accessibility review to help stay on track for compliance with our federal partners. We have several staff folks here, and I'm not sure who's starting out. We have Kimberly and Gloria, so I'm going to turn it over to you, and whoever's kicking this off, please take control.
Do you have Gloria in the audience? We can promote her?
Gloria is promoted up on Zoom now,
Okay.
so.
Will we see her?
Yeah, Gloria, just so you know, you won't appear on our screens in the room unless your camera is turned on.
Am I?
There you are. Hi, Gloria.
Hello.
Okay. Good morning, Council President Peterson and Metro Council. My name is Kimberly Abels. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Strategic Communications Manager for the Central Communications team. I am presenting today with Gloria, our Principal Community Engagement Specialist. She is joining us virtually because she is a little under the weather, which means I'll also do a little more talking than normal, but we wanted to make sure she was here to be able to answer questions and present on the great work she's been doing. We're here today to show you the changes made to the Public Engagement Guide since our last presentation and request adoption of the core guidance, noting there are a few more changes coming. Since we saw you in January, we've closed the public comment period, met with several of you one-on-one, engaged with the Public Engagement Review Committee, as well as the newly formed Committee on Disability Inclusion, and connected with staff to shore up some of the outstanding items. So we will provide a brief update on the progress of the project, discuss the input we received, how we incorporated it, and what comes next. Next slide, please. The slide on the screen shows a list of the past and expected touch points with council in coming months. In the summer, you adopted Metro's new guiding principles for meaningful public engagement, and that set the foundation for the Public Engagement Guide. Last month, we got your feedback on the potential application of the guiding principles within the introduction and heard what you hope is represented in the guide and that we also consider in our practices. Development of these future tools and appendices will be a collaborative process that will not require your adoption, but we want to make sure that it involves staff, community, and all of you. We also want to make sure we understand how you as counselors are an audience, a consultant, and hopefully even a tactic that we can use in our engagement toolkit moving forward. So Gloria is going to walk through some changes we made and also provide some examples of coming tools, and then we will move to seek your adoption. Next slide.
Thank you, Kimberly. And just want to double check if everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Wonderful. Good morning, buenos dias. I'm happy to be here, and I'm gonna ask my partner Kimberly to step in if I go into a coughing fit. My apologies. So as Kimberly said, I'm Gloria Pinzon. I use she, they, and ella pronouns, and I'm Metro's Principal Community Engagement Specialist. The slide on the screen shows the basic structure of the core guide, which you've seen in the past. It includes 3 sections and an appendix. Today, we're focused on the first 3 sections that make up the core guide. And these sections include the introduction to the document, information for community members, and guidance for staff about engagement planning. And there are a few appendices included in today's draft, as Kimberly mentioned, there will be more created in the future in a collaborative process. Once the guide is complete, we'll look at ways that we can support users through the website. And we expect for this document to be updated every 3 years. And I want to provide a little bit of clarity around the expected use of the document. So staff can use the public engagement guide to inform engagement planning, implementation, and evaluation decisions on diverse projects. The guide will supplement existing project management tools and department and agency-wide policies that staff already have to follow. We hope that the tool will help Metro become more consistent in our engagement practices so that members of the public can have more consistent experiences while engaging across departments. Next slide, please. This next slide represents one of the existing project management tools that staff have available to them. The Racial Equity Framework and Budget Tool was finalized in 2021. It is referenced in the Public Engagement Guide as part of Section 3, which is guidance for staff, and it's included in the Appendix C of the guide. Its purpose is to help ensure that a racial equity analysis is applied when decisions about Metro's budget and public services are made, whether they're about long-term planning projects, policy creation, or program development and resource allocation. As a project planning tool, it helps staff operationalize racial equity within decision-making processes. The slide lists the framework's 6 steps that staff should follow when planning new projects or policies. This tool encourages the use of collaboration, representation by people of diverse and impacted perspectives. And in step 3, the use of data and research help staff identify most impacted communities to engage in a project as part of step 4. Like the Public Engagement Guide, this tool is not a one-size-fits-all approach, and some of the steps may need to be revisited along the way as the project progresses. But ultimately, both tools allow for the flexibility for staff to reflect and right-size their projects based on their reflections, research, and impact. Next slide, please. I'll turn it back to Kimberly.
One of the things we heard from Council President Peterson and a few others was ask for a clearer understanding of how project managers identify their audiences. Many project managers who know a public engagement component is necessary for their project rely on their department partners and communications team, or in the absence of that, they reach out to Gloria to find the resources and understand how to get started. I wanted to draw your attention to pages 25 through 27 of the guide and what will eventually become Appendix G, where you will find a list of considerations that staff planning for engagement should address before they decide on their engagement tactic. These are a few of the questions that you'll find listed there. It includes questions staff should consider, like a project or program's geographic impact, local government or tribal partner connections, historical context of an issue, and potentially racial equity impacts. This also will include a risk assessment for project managers to recognize when they need to coordinate with subject matter experts, our counselors, jurisdictional partners, and political advisors. Once we get an idea of who might be impacted or potentially interested, we will then think about what do we want these people to know or do as a part of the project. Those answers will influence the communications plan as well as the engagement plans. Next slide, please. So these are examples of a few of the tools we use in the public engagement practice. It's important and a trauma-informed best practice that both practitioners and the public have a clear understanding of the level of engagement that is expected within any given milestone for the project and the audience segment. There are some cases where Metro is simply informing folks and sending information out in one direction, but there are some times as we move further along the path towards collaboration and empowerment where we would like to move the needle a bit. It's also important to recognize that the farther to the right we move on this example spectrum, the more resources and relationship building time is required. The other tool is an example of a power mapping tool. And it's demonstrating how a lot of resource may go towards connecting and engaging with highly impacted communities who may have a lower influence on the potential decision being made. Excuse me. But that does not mean we ignore those who are highly impacted and do have access to power or know how to make connections to influence a decision. We need to ensure that the reduction of barriers for one quadrant does not unintentionally put up barriers for folks in another quadrant. This guide also sets an expectation that any project that has a public engagement component, there will be an easy to find contact on the website where anyone can weigh in at any time and provide their input. One of the key things we heard both from Councilor Nolan and in the public comment was ensuring that this guide reminds us that our work does not end with engagement or once we get feedback. We need to understand how these impacts can be understood as we move through a project, past certain milestones, and continue to collaborate. And ideally, how do we move groups or communities out of quadrant D and into quadrant B? Next slide, back to Gloria.
Thank you, Kimberly, for giving my voice a break. So next, I would like to share information about what we've heard so far that I haven't been able to share with you. And this includes the public comments that we've received. There's a lot of text on the slide, but I'll try my best to highlight some key information. The input that we received from the public comment includes information about engagement practices or content in the guide. The slide represents some of what we learned through this public comment period, and a more comprehensive report will be published soon. And there were three main questions that we asked, including people's level of agreement with the draft definition of meaningful public engagement that's included in page 22 of Exhibit A of the council packet. How Metro could support civic leadership development in general to increase public participation, and where or how Metro should do outreach to inform members of the public about new engagement opportunities, Metro Council decisions, or other Metro initiatives. Some of the themes that came through made it clear that accountability through actions, transparency, and early communication with the public was key ways to earn public trust. Some of the suggestions offered by respondents included that there needs to be more awareness about who Metro is in the community, and that includes requests for having Metro Council meet with the public outside of council chambers, which we know you all are doing some of with your remote meetings. In terms of engagement, people want Metro to be guided by listening first before deciding on what problems are needed to be solved. And that impacted people should be prioritized in projects. Also, evaluation of Metro's work, whether it be engagement or otherwise, should include community members. Regarding communications, people feel that there should be transparency about Metro's decision, including having easy to find information about how decisions are being made and contact information for those overseeing specific projects. To the question about how Metro could support civic leadership or increase participation, there was some support around Metro providing training such as how to testify or information about how government decision-making or budget setting is done. Respondents want Metro to be present with community-based organizations, business districts, and neighborhood associations, as well as public events to spread the word about our work. Next slide, please. So as part of the review process for these draft documents, there are some expected changes that I want to note today based on what we've heard from members of the Public Engagement Review Committee, or PERC for short, the Committee on Disability Inclusion, or CODI, and this input was received within the month of February leading up to this meeting. So there are some changes that will lead to improved internal processes for outreach and communications, especially for high priority projects. And some of the changes that still need to be applied to the draft guide included in the council packet today include generally improved accessibility. So mentioning of Metro's ADA accessibility program in the introduction of the guide, being more explicit that inclusivity includes disability. Improve the accessibility of design and formatting of the document to ensure it's accessible to members of the public who rely on screen readers or have low visibility. This might include correcting some grammar and spelling, but also improving color contrasts, removal of some tables, and adding the full URL to websites, especially within section 2 that is meant for the public. Other changes that can be expected are adding more information about engagement and evaluation techniques, likely through Appendix G, and this was requested by our federal partners. A review of audiences listed on page 23, to improve the descriptions of who we mean by historically marginalized community members. And we also want to make information about department links or participation in Metro meetings more actionable for community members and more inviting. In section 2, there were also some changes agreed to on the guide that reflect Council President's request in January and over the summer around minimums or standard expectations for communication and outreach. This includes establishing better coordination with the central communications team, departments, and the council office on outreach to the public. More details and clarity will be incorporated into the future appendices. And other outstanding items that are yet to be developed in the appendices that I want to call out to will help capture our existing and some new resources around communications planning and engagement planning. And that will include how we reduce barriers to participation, as well as best practices for tribal government consultation and urban indigenous engagement. And that concludes our presentation. Next slide, please. So as we all know, you all have come along with us, and it's been a lot of work to incorporate different audiences' input, including community members, jurisdictional partners, and you as our council. And we are here seeking your support in adopting the core guide with the changes mentioned. And this adoption will help Metro be in compliance with our federal agency partners as the region's metropolitan planning organization. I'd like to turn it back over to you all to hear any questions or comments that you might have.
Colleagues, any questions?
It looks like President Peterson has rejoined in the attendees list, so I'm promoting her up now.
No. Yes, Counselor.
I don't have questions, but I have comments. I can wait for later, or what do you recommend?
I think this might be a time for comments as well.
Yeah, okay, cool. I know we're in a bit of transition while MCP gets back on the call, but Gloria and Kimberly, I just want to say thank you. There's been really thorough engagement, I feel like, especially with the council on this project, and want to just express my gratitude for your hard work. And I can't even remember how many months that we've been engaging in the update for the public engagement guide, but I just want to thank you a lot. And I've enjoyed our conversations that we've been able to have in our one-on-one check-ins and briefings to make sure that the project is moving forward in alignment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I want to join in that thanks. I know this is just the first benchmark and there's more to come. But it's been a lot of work. I remember, I think it was about a year ago when we first got briefed. And particularly, in addition to staff, want to thank PERC for really having reformed and stepped up in a big way. So that's pretty exciting for us as an agency to have folks giving of their time and expertise. Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you. I think I also want to echo those comments that I appreciate the hard work. It seems to cover a lot of the ground that we need to deal with. Of course, now the hard work is that we actually have to apply this guidance to all the projects and look at it thoughtfully when we come to either projects or proposals or initiatives and stuff like that. And that's, you know, the proof is going to be in how we actually pay attention to it.
So as a reminder, we're looking at Resolution 245385. And I think it's an opportunity for us to make a motion towards that.
I move adoption of resolution 24E5?
245385.
245385.
Fantastic.
I will second said motion.
Wonderful. Any further discussion? Moved by Councilor Rosenthal, second by Councilor Gonzalez. Let's take a vote.
All right, thank you. Counselor Nolan,
Yes.
Counselor Simpson,
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Counselor Rosenthal,
Aye.
Counselor Lewis,
Aye.
and it seems like President Peterson is not going to be able to get back on.
Okay. I had the script in front of me. I was told that this was an unlikely scenario, but I will keep moving. Thank you all. Okay. Next on our agenda are two ordinances. The first, 24-1506, for the purpose of annexing to the Metro District approximately 2.02 acres located in Wilsonville at the northwest corner of Southwest Frog Pond Lane and Southwest Stafford Road. Glenn Hamburg will tell us what's up.
And also just note real quick, it looks like President Peterson has been able to rejoin on her phone.
Good morning, Council. Glenn Hamburg, Regional Planner. This will be the second reading of ordinances that we had public hearings on earlier in February. And so just to recap, there are two separate properties in two separate applications, but they're both quite close to each other, both in Wilsonville, and their applications to annex properties into the Metro District boundary. This step is necessary in order to allow for future urbanization of these properties. Still, even since the public hearing, we've not had any public comments about these applications, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Wonderful. Council President, it's back to you. Not back to you. Okay, colleagues, any questions?
Not at this time.
With that, I would enter. Time. This is your moment. This is the second reading. It would be appropriate for us to have a motion on 24-1506.
I will move motion.
I will second.
Fantastic.
It's my district.
Yes, moved by Councilor Gonzalez with a second by Councilor Rosenthal. No further discussion. Could you please call roll?
Yep. Counselor Simpson,
Aye.
Counselor Lewis,
Aye.
Counselor Rosenthal,
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez,
I
Counselor Nolan,
Yes.
and President Peterson.
Aye, thank you. And thank you, Counselor Lewis, for taking over the reins when all technology has failed me.
Yes, thank you. So Glenn, you're now gonna help walk us through 24-1507, which is an ordinance for the purpose of annexing to the Metro District approximately 5.39 acres located in Wilsonville on the south side of Southwest Frog Pond Lane, as well as a portion of the Southwest Frog Pond Lane right-of-way west of Southwest Stafford Road. We had our first reading on February 8th, so again, this is our second reading.
That's correct, Counselor. This is the second of those two nearby properties, again, both in Wilsonville. And as was the case with the previous ordinance, this is an ordinance necessary to annex in additional properties already in the urban growth boundary and already in the city limits of Wilsonville, and is planned for residential development. And approval of this ordinance will allow for that development to occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
I move adoption of this ordinance.
It's been moved by Counselor Rosenthal. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Counselor Simpson on 24-1507. Any further discussion? Connor, could you please call roll?
Yes, thank you. Counselor Gonzalez,
Aye.
Counselor Nolan,
Yes.
Counselor Rosenthal,
Yay.
Counselor Simpson,
Aye.
Counselor Lewis,
Aye.
and President Peterson.
Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Glenn.
Thank you all.
Appreciate that work. Marisa Madrigal will now give the Chief Operating Officer communication.
Thank you, Counselor Lewis, and hello again, counselors. Just a couple updates today. I'm very much looking forward to our very first in-person all-staff that is happening later this afternoon at the Oregon Convention Center. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. And the event will also be live streamed for folks who are working on site and can't get to the convention center. But really looking forward to having that time together as an organization, and just hope as many folks can make it as possible. And then second, tomorrow is going to be our first meeting of the Stakeholder Advisory Committee that I've convened for to look at affordable housing funding. Very much looking forward to having folks here, honored at the broad array of invitees that have agreed to come and advise us on this topic. And that will be tomorrow at 8:30. Going for a couple hours. And the focus of tomorrow's meeting is going to just be on kind of collectively defining the problem. So what is the gap and the need for affordable housing, and what are the consequences of inaction? Subsequent meetings will focus more on the revenue side, but we really wanted to make sure that we had all agreed on the need and the impact to our community of a lack of affordable housing and a lack of housing period, frankly, but with a focus on affordable housing. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to reporting back to you on how it's going.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any questions or comments for Marisa? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move us on in our agenda to Counselor Communication, and I will first turn it over to Counselor Simpson, who will recognize Black History Month.
Thank you, Counselor.
Just
Lewis.
Counselor.
Yeah.
I'm nothing,
Yeah, thank you.
but I have a script.
You got a script. Well, first of all, I want to thank our Black ERG co-chairs, Michael Tete and Chanel Perry, for joining us today and for coordinating a beautiful event with the ERGs with Port of Portland and Portland General Electric at the Art Museum. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, I highly encourage you to go see it. You have until the 31st of March. So with that, as Black History comes to a close, I do want to take a moment to reflect on our journey. Oregon's history, initially marked by exclusion, paints a stark picture of the struggles faced by Black individuals and families. While progress has been made, the shadows of past injustices still linger, evident in the disparities that persist in our communities. Black History Month should cause us to reflect on the good, but also for us to take a close look at our past and the racist policies put forth by the state, and how that past and our recent and current failures to remedy those wrongs mean that too many in our community lack access to economic and wealth building opportunities, access to adequate transportation to work or nature or other amenities, access to quality education, access to food, affordable food, medical care, and housing, or access to real or perceived safety. It should also cause us to reflect on the stories of resiliency and excellence in our community. Some of those stories at Metro come to mind for me today, like Estella Ellaby, the woman responsible for the preservation of Oxbow Park. Before Multnomah County Parks were transferred to Metro, Ms. Ellaby was the first and only Black woman to lead that department. She loved trees and protected that ancient old growth at Oxbow from being removed for timber production by the Bureau of Land Management. She stood up for the trees and for our collective future. But then that makes me think about, in 1991, Ed Washington became our first Black counselor on the Metro Council, and he served for 10 years. And for decades, he was a leader, and he has and continues to be a leader in the community on the cutting edges of conversation about transportation, environmental protection, land use planning, and waste management. And critically, in all the work he has done for this region, he has challenged those around him to have honest and meaningful conversation about race and injustice. Because when we lead, we must lead with equity, inclusion, and justice embedded in everything that we do. Today, Mr. Washington is still serving Metro and his community as a member of the Expo Future Project Executive Advisory Committee and co-chair of the Historical Significance and Memorialization Committee. Mr. Washington, having grown up in Vanport and living through the tragedy of the Vanport flood, will ensure we appropriately honor that history and the people connected to that land. And while I have the mic and while I have the floor for a minute, I do want to acknowledge current history that has taken place here at Metro. I want to highlight and uplift Tabitha Miles Kingray. Ms. Miles Kingray began working as the operations supervisor at Oxbow Park in May of 2019. From her own personal experience and being a history major, she knew that the star badge Metro Parks Rangers wore carried a negative and traumatic meaning for people Metro wanted to feel welcome in its spaces. In the wake of 2020, she led and completed a process of redesigning the badge with a hope that, in her words, future Black, brown, and Indigenous patrons, park rangers, supervisors, and managers will be able to look at this badge and see a symbol that was created for them. It's not just a badge, it's a promise that these special places are for everyone. Tabitha is now the Equity and Social Justice Manager for Metro's Parks and Nature team. And as we wrap up Black History Month, let us consider our history and the history we want to make here today. I've heard my father and my grandfather talk about the same issues and challenges that I'm talking about today, some of those same barriers that impact my community. The work we do today will impact the way my son will talk about Black History Month in the decades to come. I know we all have to push harder and faster so that my son and all the children of this region don't have to talk about racial disparities and inequitable outcomes when they are our age. And as we move forward, we must honor our history, not just in February, but all year long. This time next year, we will reflect again on the progress we've made and what progress we've failed to make. In the coming year, I will work with staff to lead Metro to create more opportunities and spaces for Black community, from new partnerships to education and management efforts. This means continuing our equity and inclusion work in all our policies, as well as creating space for centering and celebrating our community like the Juneteenth Rodeo. I really want to thank you all for giving me a moment to talk about this on this last day of Black History Month. I know I grew up in Texas, and I'll say, you know, we have our own racist past coming out of that place, and I have plenty of stories and experience to share, but in this place that we have here in Oregon, we have an opportunity to do something great and something special, but we just have to have some urgency and some intentionality around it, so thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Beautiful words.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, any other counselor communication? Counselor.
Thanks, Counselor. Just want the council to know that the WPEZ fee task force had what we think was its last meeting. but there were some additional amendments made to the report that the task force had developed, which will be reviewed just in writing to make sure we got it right. But we all should be seeing that report in the next couple of weeks at least. The task force really dug into some issues, brought perspectives from all stakeholders in the system, listened to each other, listened to us, our team listened to them. It was a very effective and positive process. But we all know that we're not done with WPES policy decisions and programs. But this is a big step for the community to take, so I'm proud of the work that was done. Councillor Lewis vice chaired the task force, and Councillor Simpson was a member as well, so thanks for your contributions.
Thank you. Good work.
Do you want to talk about MPAC?
Yeah, who can talk about MPAC last night?
Oh.
Okay, MPAC met here last night, which was fabulous for folks. We had a couple of big issues on the table. They received a presentation and had dialogue about the WPES facilities plan. And they also had a presentation from the planning department about the process for estimating population growth and employment growth. Good discussion. The MPAC used up a lot of time on the first topic, and so didn't quite get a chance to wrestle with the population and employment projections. That will probably come back for further discussion with the MPAC.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor?
Well, I just want to add one thing. First of all, there's been a little bit of a transition out in my district. We lost one mayor, Mayor Sherrato, from the city of Durham. He died recently, and they're in the process of replacing him. And then we also had a recall election, which theoretically is, I don't think it's completely certified yet, recalled four of the councilors as well as the mayor for the city of King City, which raises some interesting issues of they don't even have a quorum, so it may be hard for them to move forward. There's a whole bunch of procedures that have to be put in place. The interesting thing from our standpoint is that they had submitted and approved a comprehensive plan for development of Kingston Terrace, and we don't know exactly what this is going to do to that plan. It could be no change, a lot of change. It may come back to us, but any rate, we had looked at their plan and said it met the basic criterias, and that had been our position, and now this may be something that's up in the air.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm going to report back on the 82nd Avenue Transit Steering Committee, which met last Thursday. We are at the point where, other than the northern terminus, which still has a preferred and a secondary, we are very close to an LPA. And we will be meeting again next month. I think that the only questions we've heard are about distance between stops and if we've removed too many stops in our desire to have express bus. The other things that I want to report on, Supportive Housing Services Oversight Committee met Monday morning. They have finalized their annual report. There was quite a lively discussion with actually two competing proposals. And they chose a specific set of language, but they've added to the report some language and recommendation around integration with the mental health and behavioral health system. But we should be seeing that within the next month, I believe. Finally, want to lift up the work that was done to engage the Expo Futures teams. We gathered at Winterhawks last night. Almost all of our meetings have been on Zoom. Councilor Simpson and I got to see some people face to face who are engaged in that process, and want to thank the team for pulling that together. And with that, anybody else? With that, no further communications. I will move us to adjournment. Our next meeting is scheduled Tuesday, March 5th, 2024 at 10:30 a.m.